Not much.
Yeah, not
Just
much.
hanging out.
Yeah, now that I'm out here hanging with you, I'm not back at the shop, but
What did we do yesterday?
man, we had so much fun at Heavenly in beautiful Lake Tahoe, and we kind of stumbled upon Tuesday? Yeah, Tuesday, where we were sort of there by ourselves, some spectacular weather, and a little bit reminiscent of the last time we were together, which was in Park City, which was around that RVX show when we had first launched the Mode 4x4s at the RVX show, as you mentioned. And so it's nice. This is almost like a deja vu. We get together and talk about vans and get to go skiing. So
right,
we had a killer day yesterday riding, and man, that was a treat.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things for you going back to Tahoe was that was one of your stops when you were on your road trip with the Storyteller van, and so that was kind of cool to see it during the winter and go skiing. First time skiing right at Heavenly in the Tahoe Basin. So that was great. We had some good snow, good weather, as you said, so that was great.
Yeah, nothing broken, no trips to the emergency room, just good times, which is a winner because I'm not that good.
So what's the update from Storyteller? What are you guys working on? How's it going? How's production going? You getting those vans pushed out? What are people saying about it? It's a pretty cool product, as we saw at the RV Expo. So you guys out a year later almost.
So yeah, that's exactly right. That was March. If I remember right, that was March in Salt Lake City at RVX. So this is January, we're 10 months later, and since launching the vans as sort of prototypes and first articles, of course we've since gotten into production. We're building about 4 to 5 a week right now.
Wow.
So that's pretty good. There's about 40 people on the team, and we're simply trying to make everyone better than the last one. We've learned a ton. We're really getting some muscle memory built up around repeat building and managing little things that come along as we go. So the people are trained up and going, and we're sort of increasing the pace, and we're pretty happy with the policies and procedures and all the kind of back end stuff that we put in place to really monitor and amp up quality and repeatability and parts awareness and parts of availability and all the back end stuff that is not the sexy fun van life stuff,
right,
but it's all the stuff that makes a business real.
Well, and I think when we were talking earlier that the Sprinter vans, there's such hot demand for that platform. You see Sprinter vans run around everywhere just about with Amazon and everything else that's going on from a delivery perspective. So how are you guys able to get those chassis and get them into the shop so that you can convert them into the Storyteller Overland?
Yeah. So that's exactly right. I think, and I'm not 100% sure about the exact number, but it's somewhere globally, we are told that Mercedes makes somewhere between 5,000 and 6,000 four-wheel drive chassis per year for the whole world. So we've worked out a deal with Mercedes. I think we're going to get about 500 of them in a rolling 12-year period. I've got 125 headed to us now, and they'll continue just to flow in after that. So Mercedes likes what we're doing, and they've been great to us. And when you really think about it, and we talked about this briefly, it's just a box with 35 cubic feet that we make a little home out of.
And that's incredible. I mean, I go camping, and you see these massive RVs and all the stuff required to pull them around, big diesel trucks and everything, and you just think, oh my gosh, why don't you just stay home if you're just going to bring your house behind? And these vans really fill an interesting slot where you can really put those things anywhere. You can park them anywhere. You park them at your house. You don't have to go rent space somewhere to store it. You can take it to a car wash. I mean, there's so much practicality built in this, but you're right. You guys pack so much stuff into the Storyteller van, which is that limited space that everybody has to work with that's trying to do this kind of thing, make this kind of product, and you guys do a great job. One of the things I really love about how you guys approach it is the flexibility option of it, the modes as you call them, but being able to reconfigure the van, because This can be a practical, everyday vehicle where you're shuttling the kids to school or soccer practice, but you have a little extra stuff in there, obviously, to maybe make it more fun and convenient. But then you can flip it around and take it camping. And one of the things I noticed, one of my good friends, Jared, rented a Airstream van that they had done, and it was very cool. But it's a fixed platform. I mean, Airstream does an incredible job. They think about it and design it, but you're really left with, you know, a single purpose vehicle, and that's a lot of money to spend on something like that. So I really love the approach that Storyteller has of configurability versus customization, and I think it gives you a lot of flexibility when you're purchasing something of that magnitude and really using it more. You know, we call it around our house a price per use. So you love to have that price per use as low as possible.
Yeah.
To make it make sense. So very cool.
No, that totally makes sense. I mean, the sweet spot for Storyteller is supposed to be the weekend warrior meets daily driver, right?
Yeah, that's a good one.
So the point on it is that needs to be super flexible. If you're a mountain biker part of the year, but then you're a skier another part of the year, it should be able to do both.
I mean, you and I are motorcyclists, right? So being able to put motorcycles in the back of it and take it to the shop or take it up to the mountains to go dirt biking or something, you can do that.
You can do that.
It's crazy.
You can tow a trailer with it if you needed to. Have other room. There's room above the van to be able to store other things. You can put a storage box. You can put skis up there. And what we're working on now is sort of the ecosystem around accessories, spare tire carriers, bike racks, boxes, and other types of things that we're...
Yeah, talk about that a little bit, because I'm a huge fan of Front Runner. They're a South African company. I have Front Runner racks that I put on my Jeep. I put them on my Land Rover. In fact, I think I was one of the first people in the world, probably because I had to call them and get special parts ordered to port my Front Runner rack off of my old Discovery LR3 and put it on the new Discovery 5 that I drive now. So I was able to do that. It's an amazing rack. I mean, I could probably pick up the whole car with that rack. It's so sturdy, and you can just do so many different things and configurations with it. But you guys are working with Front Runner too, right?
Yeah, we've been using the Front Runner racks this past year, and you're exactly right. They're versatile. They're heavy duty. They look good. You can mount lights to them. You can also just simply walk on it and use it as a bit of a viewing platform, or somewhere you can bring some chairs up, or if you're at the beach, you want to, if you're at a race, you're at your kid's soccer game, you are in the mountains, you can get up on your roof, you can put chairs there, you can sit, and you can relax, and it's just basically another part of the experience is that you can get this vantage point from being up above. But if you wanted to put diesel up there, or if you wanted to put skis and all, whatever your toys are, they can go up there as well. So it's a pretty beefy system. Just recently in exploring some of this ecosystem around these accessories and creating, like you mentioned, it's called a mode. So it's supposed to be in different modes. So you can be in a garage mode where the beds are up and you can use maximum space all the way up to the ceiling. You can be in a work mode where one side of the bed is down and you can work on the work surface. Or you can be in sleep mode, which is simply in the all down position, or you can reconfigure the Groove Lounge to be a chair or a lounge or a bed. So there's lots of sort of switchblade type of thing. It does a lot of different things, or maybe more like a Swiss Army knife. Yeah, where it can do more than just one thing, and it's not a fixed platform. But that's all on the inside. Some of the stuff we're starting to develop right now on the outside are solutions around if you wanted a spare tire, if you wanted a large box on the back to be able to store things, or if you wanted to mount bikes, or if you wanted to mount a surfboard. So it's creating the ecosystem around, sometimes at Storyteller we call them apps. They're things that you can attach to the van that make it even more flexible for your specific toys or for the season that you're in right then. If you're a surfer, you don't need the surf rack on all the time. You can pop it back off. If you're a mountain biker, you have it on some parts of the year. So it's just creating these apps that plug in, bolt on, bolt off, to make your van as useful as possible for as many of your activities as possible. So we recently built a van that was later dubbed the Beast Mode, because because we sort of looked at the whole range of things that we could start adding to vans and showing current mode owners and future mode owners the kinds of stuff you can do on your own. Some of that we could offer, some of that you could do yourself. So we mounted a rear tire on the back with a beautiful tire carrier and a box and a diesel, extra diesel and extra water to the outside of the van. We mounted a really beefy sort of a front bumper setup, sort of a cattle bumper almost. It's a
well. If you think about it, I mean, a van, the way it comes from Mercedes or Ford, you guys are also using a Ford Transit. I mean, they're straight up and down, they're boxy, they're smooth. I mean, so being able to connect different accessories to them and bolt on is way different than working with, say, a Jeep that seems like you can pull out a Torx wrench and pull screws off a Jeep and bolt stuff to it all day long.
Right.
You definitely have a bigger challenge, I think, and then the height is a challenge. So how do you make it usable and functional?
Yeah.
And I remember when we were at RV Expo, I mean, there's a ladder on the side. We climbed up to the roof. We were able to stand on the roof. There's solar panels up there. You can put other things up there as well. So that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, the aftermarket for something like a Jeep is broad and deep. The aftermarket for a Sprinter is pretty shallow. There are companies, really good, interesting companies making products, and some of the things we'll make on our own. Some we'll purchase.
But you guys have a lot of Jeep guys that work for Storyteller and overlanding guys, so they're used to this sort of bolt-on and figure it out kind of attitude, right? So you're able to port some of the good ideas from the Jeep community or the off-roading community into the Storyteller product.
Yeah, and there's tons of stuff you can do. So on that beast mode, we had a much different roof rack, 360-degree lighting.
That's so cool.
Which was fantastic. And we also...
It is interesting you say that because just on my Jeep, I went and installed, a lot of people when they do their Jeeps, they put a ton of light up front. But what I noticed when I was camping is I was always nailing my shin on something because it was dark, right, at night. So my kitchen's actually in the back of the Jeep, so I put some kind of floodlight LEDs back there so I could see around the back of the vehicle, and then I put LED strips underneath so it wouldn't hit the slider bars or whatever else might be sticking out at night. So it's really cool. So you've got 360-degree LED light bars basically around the Storyteller.
Yeah, it's all the way around, and you can, in this particular configuration, you can just hit different switches which will turn on different ones. So super good. If you're camping and you hear something out behind you, you can simply flip the lights on and peer out of one of the window shades and see if there's anything out there you need to be concerned with. But one really neat thing we did with that beast mode that is not really apparent from the outside. I was mentioning a lot of these are bolt-on things that we've done to the outside of the van. Was we did a full suspension swap with a full set of Fox suspension. So
is that new from the RV Expo? I mean, or is it?
Yes.
Oh, you did it with the beast mode. So you're really trying to push where you're going with it with that. So that's awesome. Fox shocks, man. So
there's the stock Mercedes suspension is pretty capable. It has a 6-inch lift from the factory. We put off-road tires and bigger wheels, which helps a lot. However, going to an additional 2.5 inches of lift and a full Fox suspension that's tuned for our particular axle weights, it's incredible. It makes the van feel where you're sitting a little bit higher. You can profoundly feel that the weight feels lower, and the vehicle overall feels like about 1,000 pounds lighter. And that's just, if you've been in motorcycles or if you've been in bicycles or if you've been in Jeep stuff, it's one of the first things you do is start looking at wheels, tires, and suspension.
Absolutely.
And it drives like a much different vehicle. Now, that kit is not something that the factory will put on, but it's something we would put on our own personal vehicles. And there's aftermarket solutions for all that. So big difference upgrading the suspension, and anybody in four-wheel drive, that's sort of second nature to them. The Sprinter is not a rock crawler,
right.
But it's capable from the factory, and it can become even more capable with just a few slight modifications.
Yeah, so the company is Storyteller Overland. So you and your daughter took out a Storyteller van. You went and picked it up. So why don't you tell everybody and talk about what that was actually like?
Yeah, my daughter my teenage daughter and I had the opportunity to take one of the Storyteller modes from Mount Hood, Oregon, all the way back to Birmingham. We sort of had a relatively open schedule. We had no reservations. We had a few places that we wanted to go, but we wanted to keep it as open as possible and spend a little more time or a little less time, depending on the conditions, and just so that.
And what time of year was this?
This was in July.
Okay.
So, I've been in some RVs. We've rented RVs, and I've been around them, but I really hadn't had a chance to take one of the modes for an extended trip, where we were going to be doing camping, and really what this thing is designed to do. Really eat up miles, go out anywhere. It is a full 4-season off-grid van. Like, that's the point of it. So we only were in one season. It was just July, but we got to use the air conditioner quite a bit, and I can tell you a little bit about that. But from a high level, it verified everything that I think I understood about the van and what it could do, but I got to sort of live it in real time, in that it's a short wheelbase Sprinter, and the 144-inch wheelbase means it's the same length as a crew cab pickup truck. So I personally have owned, and because we've traveled in it together, I had a 170 Sprinter that we would put 2 motorcycles inside, 4 captain's chairs and 2 motorcycles.
Yep.
And a bulkhead and all this. So I'm very familiar with the Sprinter platform, but the bigger Sprinter. And once you get into the short wheelbase, there's going to be a little bit of a compromise in terms of what you can put inside. But the versatility of being able to basically pull into any parking place changes everything. The 170 Sprinter that we had, going into a bank, going to a Walgreens, there's always drama around it, and you really have to spend a lot of time thinking, because you're going to hang out 3 feet out of the parking space. So with the short wheelbase Sprinter, you have incredible stealth, because people don't know if you're in it or you're not in it, but you can just pull into normal parking spaces, and it just changes the whole experience, and it could be a daily driver instead of a big experience every time you get in it. So we started in Mount Hood, and we were able to travel across the country. You're basically carrying your, I don't know if this is exactly right, but you're carrying your Jeep and your hotel and your restaurant with you, right?
That's a great way to put it.
So, we've traveled on motorcycles together, and there's certain freedom and awesomeness in that.
Yeah.
Right? Because you have, all the motorcycle experience, and but I will say that if you're in an ADV van, it's probably the most versatile and most freeing way that you can travel, because you can basically go anywhere. You can go off grid. You don't need to be in a campground, right? Our battery system and our water system are such that you can go off grid for easily a week at a time, without needing to plug in, and you can sleep in any conditions. And you can also simply throw the window shades up. They're sort of on magnets. You can throw the window shades up, and you'll find that you can basically camp anywhere.
Super stealth.
So there's super stealth. There's boondocking just in the middle of nowhere in the desert, but there are also stealth. We parked in various parking lots across the country if we just got too tired. We camped in the parking lot at Yosemite. We had no reservations.
In the middle of the summer, busiest national park on the planet.
Yep.
And you guys rolled in there, no reservations, and what happened?
We went in. I said, are there any dispersed camping anywhere we could go? The guy basically laughed at me and said, son, this is one of the biggest, tourist locations on the planet, and there's no camping. And we ended up sleeping in the parking lot and flipping the air conditioner on, and had a great time. So I'm not saying that's
the preferred way to do it, but when push comes to shove, or you can. I couldn't roll into Yosemite with my trailer or something without plenty of stuff. I couldn't even camp in my Jeep, but with a van, since you're self-enclosed, you can go super stealth mode even at Yosemite,
right.
and park and get away with it, I guess, is one way to say it. But then you're in Yosemite, for crying out loud. That's so cool.
Yeah, well, there's locations where there's no campers, and you can say, well, this is our van. And there's locations that say no vans, And you can say, well, this is a camper, right? So it does both, and you can play a little differently depending on where you are. So another example, we didn't camp at the Grand Canyon, but we wanted to do the sunrise setup. So we, got there super early, and we walked around the Grand Canyon, and it was awesome. And then, around lunch, we were just sort of pooped out. We were tired, and we, put the air conditioner on and put up the shades, and we slept for 2 or 3 hours, and then we got on the road.
Now, we looked at this at the RV Expo, this air conditioner setup. So you've got an air conditioner on the van, but the battery system inside of the van is so powerful and so well done, you can run that AC off the battery, and then you can even charge the battery very quickly because of the alternator engine setup. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Because you keep talking about turning on this air conditioner. Now I'm getting jealous.
Well,
go camping and have the ability to do that, which is killer.
So there's 2 things that we have. There's a fantastic fan. When a lot of weather conditions, just throwing on the fan, that thing pushes hundreds of CFM. So you can, there's a lot of situations you don't need an air conditioner, and just running a fan will be more than sufficient. But for people who camp in hotter environments, where we do frequently, we have a Volta system, and it is big enough to run the air conditioner all night. So it's a 12,000 watt battery. The air conditioner is making somewhere between 800, 900, or 1,000 watts. And so you can do the math, right? You can depending on what you're using and your state of charge, you can run your air conditioner all night long.
That's incredible.
And to top it off, which makes it even more efficient, is that behind every panel...
By the way, you're running off electricity. It's not like your Honda generator's firing up at 3 in the morning and running all night or something like that, right? I mean, that's what's killer.
There's no generator.
Quiet.
Right.
Again, back to stealth mode, right? You're running AC and comfortable and...
Right. When we were at the Grand Canyon and we were in the parking lot sleeping in July, nobody knew that we were in there or not. The air conditioner is very quiet, and it sits up there and just blows, and we were in pitch black. It was full blacked out. So it's really nice. And behind every wall, behind every panel, we remove all the door panels. We stuff every possible millimeter of that van with sheep's wool insulation.
That's crazy. You were telling me about this, and this is sheep's wool from New Zealand, and it's an incredible insulator. It's antimicrobial. It doesn't have formaldehyde in it.
Doesn't burn. There's a million reasons, and the company.
Who does that though? I mean, I would think most people will probably get that foam spray and stuff, and that's what their insulation is, or they're using
pink
fiberglass or something like that, right?
We experimented with all of that stuff. We had spray and foams, which can damage the vehicle because they'll actually expand into the body panels. Plus, it's poison. It's very caustic. It's very difficult to work with.
Yeah, I don't want to sit in a metal box in
Hot.
July with a bunch of chemicals.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys are really minimizing that as much as possible, right?
It's the same way with the pink insulation and also with like a Thinsulate, even a 3M Thinsulate. So we simply tested all of those things and determined that it's called Havelock. They're based out of Truckee, but they get the insulation from New Zealand. They bring it in, they turn it into bats, so it looks like insulation. And then our team just literally stuffs. There's all kinds of little nooks and crannies in the metal bodywork before we put the panels on, and the stuff that the end user sees, all behind there, every little hole is just stuffed with this. So if you're in cold conditions and you're running the diesel heater, you maintain your heat, and it's not drafty inside. It's a big deal. You're close to the walls, you're close to the windows. But on the flip side of that is, if you're in the air conditioner and you're not trying to run it on full duty cycle the whole time, of course, just being better insulated changes everything, and it's a very tight, very comfortable environment, and your air conditioner can become very efficient.
That's awesome. Well, one last story I want you to tell is when you and your daughter were driving, it was that thing that really struck me was that freedom aspect. So not only can you go to a national park and boondock and in stealth mode, but also you guys were just driving down, I think, 395 in Nevada, California, and it was like, hey, let's test this thing out. It's got off-roading capability, so let's just go out in the desert. Let's take one of these dirt roads and go. So talk about that little adventure, side adventure.
Yeah, we don't have that in Alabama, right? In the South, you just don't have sort of dispersed camping, just sort of four-wheel drive, just roads and desert everywhere. So we took advantage of that, and I'm not a professionally trained four-wheel drive guy, but I'm okay. You know, I generally know what I'm doing, and we really had no fear. We found probably the most beautiful one we went to was in Mono Lake.
Yeah, I know that. Yep.
Which was on the backside.
Revining and Mono Lake, on the backside of Yosemite.
On the backside, right. So we simply just saw this big areas, and we could way off in the distance, we could see Jeep guys and guys with FJ Cruisers, and they were out there. So we simply just turned down some of those roads and drove, and you know, the four-wheel drive is a pretty capable thing. I mean, fire roads, no problem. Big ruts, no problem. Medium rocks, no problem. But so that was super cool. And when you get all the way out there, again, it is a off-grid camper. So, man, we could use the microwave. We were grabbing things out of the fridge. You can put the awning out and sit in the shade, right, and just relax out in the middle of nowhere. And that's just something that it's so rare in life anymore, just to be completely isolated, where you can barely see anybody or you can't see anybody. Right, and I was there, of course, with my teenage daughter, and we got to have a lot of heart-to-hearts that we may not have had in the regular hustle and bustle of life.
Well, and you get out there, and the stars at night are just unbelievable, and you get to see some things that you just would never get to see normally, and spend that quality time with your kids, which is really cool. So I think that really highlights the flexibility and the mobility and what you can do with a Storyteller Overland van. So thanks, Lee, for that. We are now at La Mesa RV in West Sacramento, California, and we are going to go check this out, and hopefully there is a Storyteller van here. We'll do some more walk around, and I think after this one, I got to get out to Alabama and Birmingham and see the family, but also come see the factory. And I think that'll be really cool to see where you guys are at with all of that, and get a factory tour. And
I wonder if we can just get you the keys to one and you guys fly in and just go out for a few days.
That's good with me. I got to get on the waiting list to buy one of these.